What were those differences? Can you go a little bit more into detail saying, hey, PowerISA helped you crack the code. What did that look like as you were executing? Because you talked about what it was before, constantly training people and just not moving forward. You're always kind of stuck in that initial phase.
And it's really difficult for a business of this scale. It's hard to keep track of everybody. And what I love about PowerISA is you guys actually train them. You train in my CRM, you listen to the calls, you give feedback to us weekly or bi-weekly, phone calls, Zooms, emails. So we're always knowing what's going on. We have our own internal Slack. You guys use your own messaging boards. We're like on a journey together. Your coach and my coach are helping make this great ISA. I mean, at this point, I have like 7 or 8 people with you. Just that collaboration. Nobody's doing this. And I've hired, like I said, a lot of them, and no one does the collaboration like you do.
All right, folks, I got a great one here for you guys. I've got Koby Sway from the Briley Team here to talk about their whole experience, with this whole ISA project and kind of the results they've gotten. So, Koby, welcome. And my first question is, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about, your role, about the team. What is it you guys do? Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Koby Sway, General Manager of the Briley Real Estate Team in Omaha, Nebraska. Adam Briley started the team about 18 years ago. I've been here 5.5 years. I try to help him manage this crazy zoo chaos of a real estate team. And so, yeah, just having a lot of fun. But yeah, we're based in Omaha, Nebraska.
Awesome. And, and tell us a little bit about the size of the team, like the current team production. How do you guys rank?
Yeah. So we're actually 22nd in the country out of all teams nationally. We're number 1 at Berkshire Hathaway. That's the brokerage rep. So we're number 1 in the country for Berkshire. We do about 900 units a year. We have 57 real estate agents today, 75 by the end of the year is our goal. And so yeah, deal with a lot of volume. About $300 million a year is what we do annually as well.
Yeah, it's a massive amount of units, massive team. So I guess the question would be for you guys, why the ISA role? Is that something you guys had a lot of experience with? That's something new for you folks? Why ISA, and why look for someone like PowerISA?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So we've got a lot of staff. I mean, I have some in the office and I have some overseas, and we've done the ISA role for a long time. We've had internal. I've had people in other ISA departments, other companies we've hired. I mean, I've hired 4 other ISA companies. And the biggest struggle we ran into when we had an ISA locally here was managing the person was difficult. Keeping track of what they were doing all the time was difficult. The cost is very expensive when I have somebody internal at my office, because again, not only do I have to pay their salary, but I have to have a desk and a secluded room and a separated spot. So there's a lot of logistical problems. So internal and external, we've never cracked the code on ISA. I've been here 5.5 years, and I've never cracked the code until I partnered with PowerISA. We just haven't seen the results like we have until we've hired you guys.
Oh, wow. So I love hearing that. That's, obviously music to my ears. And Koby, tell me more about that, because it looks like you had a lot of struggles, right? And for folks that have tried this role, they know it.
Yeah.
Finding great people is a challenge, right? Because it's viewed as like a very entry level position. And so not just finding good people is hard, keeping them is hard, because it's seen, again, I'm not against this. It's seen as a stepping stone, right? You have someone do really well in that role. Try to keep them in the role, more than a few months, more than a year. It's going to really, really challenging, because they probably want to get licensed. They want to move to something else.
Yeah.
It's seen as an entry-level position you should get out of, versus someone that's outside the U.S. This is the top of the top. You aspire to work for a team like you guys, work for a team in the U.S. and just get the results you're able to get. It's like the pinnacle of achievement, so just that approach, I see very different, results just because of that. I think the whole approach to the role is very, very different, and finding the right person, right, to plug into a well-oiled machine like you guys are, that's the game. You guys have a process, you have a system, you've got, leads. So it's really about finding the right person, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say that, because that's how I used it. I would hire non-licensed real estate agents, local, internal, and then it would be, you get here for a year and then you become a realtor. And we never really cracked the code there. I mean, they never made it a year. They always were itching because they were like, no, I can't do this forever. Whether it's sitting behind a desk they didn't want to do, or they thought there was more money on the other side. They felt like they were trapped in their role. So I never cracked the code to keep them over that 1 year commitment. Now they stayed on the team and sold, and sometimes they did well. But overall, it was extremely difficult because I was constantly training, hiring, constantly training, hiring, and the churn I just kept churning people over. And finding quality workers is tough. I mean, it's like you said, it's not a pinnacle or ideal position in some people's eyes. So yeah, other external companies, we had a lot of struggles, and then even internal, like you're mentioning, we definitely ran into all of those problems.
I got you. And what were those differences? Can you go a little bit more into detail, saying, hey, PowerISA helped you crack the code. What did that look like as you were executing? Because you talked about what it was before, constant churn,
Yeah.
constantly training people, and just not moving forward. You're always kind of stuck in that initial phase.
Well, what I love about Power ISA is you guys actually train them. And this sounds crazy, but other ISA companies, they train. They don't train. They literally are like, hey, we're going to train them. And then it's like an hour or a day. And they're like, they're your employee. And it's really difficult for a business of this scale. I mean, we have 5 or 6 companies we run. We have 100 employees at this point. And it's hard to keep track of everybody. And the difficult thing about hiring an ISA that a lot of people don't understand is they're your employee. So you have to spend the time that it takes to train someone like you would internal. So even if you hire somebody at a cheaper rate, let's say, at another country or another area, you still got to train them. And other companies just handed them over after a day or two, never train them. So that's the first thing I would say is PowerISA, you do a great job. You train in my CRM, you listen to the calls, you give feedback to us weekly or bi-weekly, phone calls, Zooms, emails. So we're always knowing what's going on. We have our own internal Slack. You guys use your own messaging board. So it's like we're like on a journey together. Your coach and my coach are helping make this great ISA. And I mean, at this point, I have I think 7 or 8 people with you. So
big team.
It's yeah, just that collaboration. Nobody's doing this. And I've hired, like I said, a lot of them, and no one does the collaboration like you do.
I love that. And you guys have built a big team because you guys are a big team. You need a big ISA team.
Yeah.
What are the main functions that these ISAs do on a team of your scale? Are they focusing on, are they cleaning up the CRM, older leads? Are they hitting the outbound prospecting? What would you say are the different, roles you've got within the team?
That's good. So I try to do a lot of team leaders, and I'm not the team leader, I'm a GM, but it doesn't matter. A lot of team leaders think this way, that if I bring an ISA in, they can do 18 different things. And it just doesn't work. So I try to specialize them in specific things. I have one that's specifically hitting PPC, harder to get a hold of leads. I have one specifically working on sellers. I have one that's working on recruiting. I have recruiting for mortgage. I've got recruiting for my real estate team. So I have recruiters that I've hired from you guys. Because again, the script's a script. I mean, I could teach anybody how to talk to people. It's just a different game, whether it's recruiting a realtor or it's recruiting a client. It's the same game. But I have them specifically hitting certain benchmarks or avenues, ghosting clients. Or I even have one ISA that's calling all of our past fear leads and just kind of staying in front of them as like a nurture. We call it like a Care Bear nurture group. And it's incentive to the realtors because it's like, hey, a lot of these guys have hundreds of leads. And now I have an ISA just touching base and saying, hey, I'm Koby's assistant. Hey, I'm Jeremy's assistant. And it comes off more of a personalized touch. So I have them in silos, if you will. But the other cool thing is I will move them out of the role into other roles to make sure from a pay perspective, they're hitting the avenues they want. So if let's say ghosting clients is not a great incentive financially, we'll move them to something else. But yeah, I'm in silos.
I love that. Yeah. And for folks that are at your scale, specialization makes a lot of sense, right? You want one person that's great at 10 things, or do you want 10 people that are really, really good at one thing? I think that's kind of the challenge. And for smaller teams or individual agents that have ISAs, you've got to do many things. And that I totally understand that. But once you reach scale, there's a lot of value in specialization because, you get really, really good at one thing. You learn one script at a time. You learn one lead source, one one process, one handoff, and you can get really, really good at that. So, and again, there's pros and cons to both approaches, but I think the whole team model, that's the big value add, like for you guys, and whether it's a licensed agent or an unlicensed assistant, the specialization, 1 person learning 10 things or 10 people learning one thing. Which one do you think is going to have, the best outcome, longer term? I think that's where a lot of the value, the whole team model lies in that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I would say to add to that is think about this, okay? And it doesn't matter the platform. There's hundreds of online lead sources out there. They cost $2, they cost $2,000, they're expensive. And I always tell people, I'm like, what does it cost for an ISA compared to, one expensive lead source that I have? I give $700,000 a year to them, right? So if I'm willing to give $700,000 a year for these clients, right? How am I nurturing them? How am I staying in front of them? How am I maximizing my ROI? Do I really want to continue to invest $700,000 into this company and then have the agents rely on it versus an ISA can sit and churn and churn and churn and churn? I've already invested the $700K. Why wouldn't I have my ISA continue to weed through those fishing ponds, if you will? So when we started off with, honestly, I think 2 with you. And what we did was we just said, hey, you take inbound leads, and the other one just call fishing pond leads. I mean, literally, we just had those 2 avenues. That was it. That still worked out on a smaller tame scale. I mean, when we started it 5 years ago, we had 9 realtors. And when we had just 1 or 2, it worked extremely well again, even on a smaller level. And just think of it as an expense like this. Again, like we spend a lot of money on lead or inbound traffic or referrals or billboards or whatever. If you look at the ISA department like an expense the same way as a lead source, you will actually see ROI. Most team leaders don't do that. They just look at, I already spent the money on it. Why would I spend an ISA? I'm going to make a realtor do it. But then the lead's going to fall at the backside and you're wasting money. So it's a tack on to your existing cost.
Yeah, 100%. And knowing your numbers, I think that's really the key thing, right, Koby? You have to know your numbers, know your cost, and know your conversion rate, and how much, if that conversion rate bumps up, if you increase that conversion rate, what does it look like on the bottom line? Because you're right, adding an ISA is a minimal expense compared to a really large lead generation budget. But bumping up that conversion rate, how much is that? How much money is that? Like that's the real ROI, right? Like and folks that know their numbers at scale know that to really increase their ROI, they can spend more money. That's another way to do it, right? They just buy more leads or crank up that or both. Crank up the spend. But what happens if we crank up that conversion rate? 100%. I think that's where the big wins can happen, right? 100%. And you touched on a really, really, I want to say controversial topic, right? Which is the what's the role of the ISA on the team, right?
Yeah.
And this is a question. There's no right answer to this. If you ask 2 team leaders, you'll get 3 answers to this question. But What is the handoff point, right? Like, what does the ISA do, and then what does the real estate agent do? And on some teams, they're going to hand off just warm leads, and the agents have to handle it after that. And on some teams, the ISA has to do more of the nurturing and hand off a more qualified, ready to meet kind of lead, right? So for you guys, for Briley Team, how have you kind of taken that approach? Where do you guys land on that spectrum of the ISA does a small amount and we put a lot of responsibility on the agent, or the ISA takes on more of that nurturing follow-up process and just hands off a much more qualified lead to the agent?
Yeah, and we've tried both. So I appreciate that question, because we have figured out, what is the agent's job and what's their role. And I think the easiest way to think about this is, what does a real estate agent want to do? They want to meet somebody at a house and develop a relationship, period, end of story. They don't want to call, they don't want to text, they don't want to nurture, they don't want to do any of that. They just want to meet people. And I've tried the other way, which is literally, okay, they talked to him once, ISA, perfect. Now the realtor is going to run it, and ISA's never talked to him again. The problem is the real estate agent will let him just die in the CRM, and it just goes buried, and there are hundreds and hundreds of CRM leads. Because again, think about it. Most real estate agents add their sphere or their contact list. Well, we all have 500, 700 contacts, right? Then you add in, just say 15 online leads a month. I mean, it just gets buried. So we've tried both. I think personally, if you ask real estate agents, the less they nurture, the happier they'll be. You have to charge them more. It's more expensive. So you have to charge the realtor more to pay the ISA expense, 100%, just like a lead source. I can get you a lead source that costs $1 and I can get you one that's $2,000. The one that's $2,000 is better, right? And it's the same concept. And I sell it that way to the agents that, hey, this is going to be a little bit warmer, a little bit hotter, a little more now, and it's more expensive. So I let the ISA continue. And then if the realtor doesn't feel good, they kick it back to the ISA. So I try to keep it with the ISA as long and as much as possible because I know they follow up consistently. Realtors don't consistently.
100%, and I think that's a good model because not only do you make sure you're kind of protecting the lead source and making sure it doesn't slip through the cracks, yeah. I think it makes I don't know if you guys use this, but the recruiting pitch better, because what would agents prefer? Do they want the $1 leads or do they want the warmer handoff, right? Like which you want leads or you want appointments, another way to state it, right? You want leads or you want appointments? Which one would you rather? Because they're both, you're gonna have to call both, you have to follow with both. I mean, nothing's automatic, right? But which one would you rather follow up with? The person at the top of the funnel or the person at the bottom of the funnel? Which one do you prefer? And I think agents, I mean, I'm an agent too, right? So that's what we want. We're really good at meeting people, connecting with people. There's a reason we got into the business, right? We can talk to people. We like connecting and relating to folks. Sometimes, and I've been a team leader too, we want agents to wear a lot of hats. Yes. We want them to be the telemarketer, and we want them to be the lead follow-up, nurturing specialist, customer care person, and we want them to be the closer and the negotiator and the contract guy and the transaction guy, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And that's if your goal, if your vision is to create a team of maybe 3 agents, you can find people like that. Maybe that's
for sure.
I think if you want to reach scale, that's going to be impossible. I don't think you're going to find that you're not going to find that many unicorns at scale. So I think specialization is a great way to bridge that gap and really add a lot of value to the agents. I think it's very valuable because agents can be really good at that one thing. If they're really good at closing the deal, like getting in front of the home buyer, getting in front of the home seller, and getting them to sign the dotted line. That's a 6-figure skill set. That's a really, really valuable skill set. And everything else, I don't know if that's a 6-figure skill set.
I agree.
I don't think so.
I agree. And I think the other thing that I find interesting is people will do AI and automations and they'll automate themselves out of a job. And it's crazy. And again, our coach tells us all the time that if you make a phone call and you talk to a human being, there's nothing today that replaces a physical phone call with a human being today. Period. End of story. You can send 1 million text messages. You can send 1 million emails. You can have a robot do weird stuff. But there's something about a live phone call where people still create a bond. And people ask about the ISA during the transaction when we hand it over. They're like, well, tell me about Armando. And it's like, well, Armando, people ask where my recruiter is. After they recruit to our team, they ask, they're like, hey, I want to meet James. I'm like, well, guess what? He's in Cancun. He's nowhere near here. Right. And people are like, really? I had no idea. And that's the other most powerful thing is they don't know where these people are, but they care. They show investment. They ask great questions and they feel like they're genuinely interested in who they are. They're not just like on to the next person. So the follow-up strategies and the nurturing is so cool when an ISA actually cares about it. Because again, they're going to get paid a bonus or whatever, but it's cool when you see that.
Yeah, and I think that's a combination of a couple of things. One is like you're right, the incentive structure, right? Where are the incentive place, and also what I mentioned earlier on that this is like the big leagues for them. This is like this is the show, making it to the show, right? Like making it to the really the top of the top. I think the approach changes. I mean, that's my take. It's a very self-serving narrative. I'll be honest with that, but I think that makes a big difference. How you approach the position, you can tell when someone's high energy over the phone. You can tell when someone's like smiling or standing up or doing, or when someone's kind of going through the motions, right? I don't know what the word would be, but you can tell when someone's like invested in the process versus someone's kind of just doing it like tech support, that's dealing with the 15th call that hour, right? I think the process changes, and I think the outcome, really, really changes. So I think you guys have built a culture, right? You've plugged some really good people into a really good system, into a really good culture, and that's why you're able to get some of those really good outcomes. That's my take from my perspective. What I'm seeing you guys do. So when you have a good system, you plug good people into it, really good things happen. Speaking of which, Koby, tell us what kind of results have you gotten? You got these ISAs doing many, many different things. How do you measure success? How do you measure ROI when you've got a team that's at scale, it's large? What have been the results you guys have been able to achieve in these different areas?
Yeah. So, I mean, we look at really what I look at is the reporting's great, right? How many calls they're making. I look at how many conversations are they having. And then again, we're looking at what are the tags when the ISA is tagged, when they're involved, and how many are we converting, right? It always comes down to that. But it starts with phone calls, conversations, and then how many handoffs have they had. And the last thing is conversion. It depends on the leaders. Some care about a lot of phone calls. Some care a lot about a conversion. I like to look at what's in the middle. How many conversations are we having, and how many active leads in the pipeline that agents are still working to see what they've handed over. Because again, like I could get 100 leads today to an ISA, and they could hand over 100 of them by just sending it over, and they're all, let's say, junk, never talk to them, right? So that's
100%.
why, like, a lot of team leaders and agents skew the number. So I look at how many are they actively working in their pipeline, my realtors from the ISAs, and then conversions, right? So I look at the bottom of the funnel, not necessarily the top. But we're getting sales. From a recruiting standpoint, we're getting recruits appointments every single day, multiple times a day, every day, with my mortgage company and with my real estate company. We're getting appointments every day on my ISAs making calls out of some of these leads, fishing ponds, older leads, crappier leads, older ghosting leads, whatever you call them, tougher. We're getting appointments churned over still, one or two a day, and we're getting conversions every week. So depending on the day, you might get five, you might get six. But almost every day, an ISA is putting an appointment to a real estate agent's schedule
I love that.
consistently.
I love that, because you've got the leads to do it, right?
Oh
You've
yeah.
got the, something to work with, and it's all about plugging the right person into a working system, right? It's finding the right person, plugging them into the right culture and the right tool set, and you can make really really awesome things happen. So I love hearing that. And Koby, tell me, if you were talking to someone, let's say that they're on the fence, they're not sure whether to try, a remote ISA, they're not sure whether they can make it work. They're not sure about working with PowerISA. What would you say to someone that's kind of sitting on the fence, pondering this question?
I would tell you that hiring somebody not in your office sounds scary. It's fantastic. And it's not what people think that it is. A lot of people have negative connotations that it's going to be not resourceful or not successful, or it's going to cost a lot, or it's complicated. Or I can tell you, we spent a lot of money on the ISA department. We've hired and fired a lot. We've tried other companies overseas. And simply, Power ISA makes it simple, makes it easy, and you have a coach collaborating with you. So like you don't have to do a lot of the work, at least the first few months, right? They're doing a lot to start. So what we did is the Power ISA team, our coach started with a ton of training, and then we took over after a few weeks or a month in and started, putting in some of our pieces and just continuing to build on it. So if you're sitting on the fence, I'm telling you right now, as soon as you think you need the person, just hire them, because it adds pressure to your business to perform. It adds pressure to your business to take action. So do it if you're thinking about it. And if you are thinking about it, I'm telling you right now, I've done so many of them, and I've talked to hundreds of leaders across the country. I partner with a lot of coaches, and I recommend Power ISA to every single team.
Awesome. Awesome. Koby, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Coming from a team like you guys that's built such a huge organization, it's a huge kudos. So thank you so much. And I appreciate the time. Thanks for making some time, kind of share, what you guys are up to and your guys' results with the community. Thanks so much, Koby.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.